The Triassic period is the most famous for the rise of the dinosaurs. It is in these humid, marshy floodplains and forests that the distant ancestors of the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex took their first steps, chasing lizards and small ancestors of the mammals through the foliage. The dinosaurs, as we have discussed on this channel before, however, did not rule the roost in the Triassic period. Evolving alongside them were a multitude of giant reptiles and synapsids, several of which could have put an abrupt end to the lives of many early dinosaurs. It is because of this that there are not many dinosaurs from the Triassic that have permeated into the public's awareness. Today, however, we will be discussing one that has. Coelophysis was a slender, agile carnivore that lived in what is now the southwestern United States of America between 228 million to 201 million years ago in the Triassic's later stages. This, as we will see, is a particularly well-studied and closely known dinosaur, which, combined with its prominent place in popular culture, has seen it break through to the limelight as the quintessential dinosaur of the Triassic in the eyes of the public. Going so far back in time, however, this will be a journey unlike many of our other documentaries, where we will enter a world cloaked in mystery and packed with animals unlike anything alive today. We will be exploring how this early theropod lived and hunted, how it was discovered, and what the world would have looked like when it stalked its late Jurassic home over 200 million years ago. Join us on a trip through time as we explore the discovery and life of Coelophysis, perhaps the best known dinosaur of the Triassic period. Perhaps one of the reasons Coelophysis is so well known to both scientists and the public alike is due to the fact that it was discovered almost 150 years ago. It has had a long time to make itself known to those studying it, who, as a result, have found some excellent specimens and wrote many detailed papers on the remains extracted from the Triassic rocks of America. Coelophysis was first named and described by famed fossil hunter Edward Drinker Cope in 1887, but a vital error was made. Cope did not initially recognize the dinosaur as a new species, assigning it to the genus Coelurus, a dinosaur from the Jurassic period, and again to the genus Tanystropheus, a type of semi-aquatic reptile with an incredibly long neck. In 1889, Cope realized that this was in fact an entirely separate genus and assigned the name Coelophysis to it, a name that, in English, translates to hollow form, a reference to the dinosaur's lightweight, hollow vertebral bones. Cope's early Coelophysis remains, however, were unreliable. They surely represented a new genus of dinosaur, but they were too fragmentary and damaged to discern exactly what this animal might have looked like in life. It wasn't until 1947 when the picture became clear. George Whitaker, an assistant paleontologist to Edward H. Colbert, was lucky enough to uncover an entire graveyard of Coelophysis bones in New Mexico's Ghost Ranch. Whitaker and Colbert studied the finds intensively, determining that they belonged to Edward Drinker Cope's mysterious genus from the 1880s. The fossils uncovered by Whitaker were in fact so well preserved that they replaced Cope's first find as the type specimen for the species Coelophysis barri. Amongst the finds at Ghost Ranch, it is thought, are the remains from over 1,000 individual dinosaurs, and some of them are incredibly well preserved, almost in their entirety. This mass grave is not a one-off either. In Zimbabwe, over 30 specimens of a dinosaur that some paleontologists argue could belong to the genus Coelophysis have been found bundled together in a large slab of rock. Not only do we have direct evidence of Coelophysis' existence across North America from its bones, but scientists have found a series of trace fossils thought to belong to this little theropod. A trace fossil is evidence for the presence of a prehistoric animal in an area that does not include hard remains. In this case, Coelophysis' trace fossils come in the form of footprints, again very well preserved, across the Connecticut River Valley, which spans the states of Connecticut and Massachusetts. Dated to have been made in the late Triassic and possibly the very early stages of the Jurassic periods, these fossils show the marks made by the second, third, and fourth digits, but not the first or fifth. This implies that Coelophysis' first and fifth digits were atrophied and stub-like, and were not able to touch the ground when the dinosaur was on the move. Other skeletons having been assigned to the genus Coelophysis have been found in the same area, which points to the thought that these prints could have been made by this dinosaur. Controversially, some scientists have doubted the validity of Coelophysis as a dinosaur genus, claiming that it is similar enough in size, form, and time period to be the same dinosaur as Megapnosaurus rhodesiensis, a theropod from South Africa. Other paleontologists have argued back against this claim, however, noting the differences in length and proportion of some of Coelophysis' bones. The teeth of these two dinosaurs are considered to be different in size, and some of the muscle attachment points along the bones can be found in different places for each species. As it stands, the two dinosaur genera are considered to be distinct. To this day, Coelophysis remains one of the most common dinosaurs to have existed throughout the Triassic period. Thousands of specimens have been uncovered to this date, spanning much of the United States, with other potential species having been unearthed in Africa. Bones and remains of Coelophysis are in fact so commonly unearthed from the Triassic rock formations that it is impossible for paleontologists to calculate just how many specimens of this dinosaur are known. This has led to Coelophysis being one of the most well-known and accurately reconstructed Triassic dinosaurs of all. The first thing a time traveler would notice about the appearance of Coelophysis in life is how lithe and slender the dinosaur would be. Compared to the other theropods, especially the later, larger forms of the Jurassic and Cretaceous, Coelophysis was almost like a dinosaurian snake in its body form, measuring roughly 3 meters tall from nose to tail and 1 meter tall at the hip. Despite the size, this dinosaur would have only weighed between an estimated 15 to 20 kilograms when fully grown, due to its extremely lightweight build. This slender form was perfect to contribute to the dinosaur's great agility and fast speeds, and it was likely able to quickly pursue small, fast-moving prey items, such as reptiles and cynodonts, through the undergrowth with ease. Not only was this dinosaur long and slender, it was narrow. Seen from head-on at the right angle, you would be surprised to know you were staring eye to eye with a dinosaur. The narrow form would have aided it in slipping in and out of rock formations vegetation, and other obstacles as it chased after prey. The latter half of the torso, namely the pelvis and legs of this dinosaur, were also slightly specialized to help with this. Slight modifications made to the acetabulum and ankle bones allowed it to dart through the landscape of its Triassic home at great speeds. The tail was also perfectly adapted to help the dinosaur balance. The projections of its vertebrae interlocked, preventing the tail from moving up and down, allowing for a rigid structure that would help the dinosaur stay upright. Coelophysis was what has come to be described as a basal theropod, meaning that it was an early form of the group, essentially forming the bottom layer or base that would be built upon by more complex and specialized forms in later periods and environments. Basal animals are usually more generic than their later cousins, but surprisingly, several adaptations have been found in Coelophysis that allow it to stand out from the crowd of other basal theropods. Coelophysis was, for example, the first known dinosaur to possess a wishbone towards the front of its torso, a common feature in modern birds. It was also one of the first dinosaurs to make significant moves towards the three-fingered hand present in many later theropods. Technically, it did possess 4 digits on each hand, but one was so receded that it was completely dysfunctional, making large steps towards the eventual atrophy of this feature. The skull of Coelophysis was proportionally long and ended in a relatively sharp point at the snout. The dinosaur's eyes were forward-facing, allowing for good eyesight and excellent depth perception, which would have been vital when chasing prey. Studies on the scleral ring bones around the dinosaur's eyes have determined that Coelophysis was diurnal and hunted by sight, not smell or hearing. Not only that, but Coelophysis could see particularly well. Scientists have determined that this little theropod had eyes roughly as powerful as those belonging to modern birds of prey, specifically eagles and hawks. Take into account that an eagle can typically see 8 times as far as humans can, able to focus on a prey item from roughly 2 miles away, and you have an idea of how this dinosaur may have hunted. Further studies on the eyes have led to scientists determining that Coelophysis was a diurnal hunter, and its powerful vision would have been rather ineffective at nighttime. Behind the skull was a long, slender neck with a distinct S-curve that would have been useful to help the dinosaur reach prey that had scurried into a hole or crevice in the side of a rock. Little, however, is known of the intelligence or brain power of this dinosaur. Although fragments of the brain case have been discovered, almost all the skulls are crushed to the point where scientists cannot effectively gather any information on the brain itself. Due to the form, size, and shape of Coelophysis's curved blade-like teeth, it was easy for paleontologists to determine that this must have been a dinosaur that hunted other animals. It was specifically thought that this dinosaur would have focused on hunting small reptiles, or possibly fish from rivers, quick-moving animals that the dinosaur could have pursued and snatched up in their slender, pointed jaws. However, did Coelophysis employ more than just its teeth to catch its prey? Paleontologist Kenneth Carpenter in 2002 conducted a study into the mechanics of the arms of theropod dinosaurs from several regions and time periods, one of which was Coelophysis. Looking into the function and strength of the arms, Carpenter came to the conclusion that they were flexible, with a good range of movement. But the bone structure within the arms was comparatively weak when compared with some of the later, larger theropods. He added that the arms would not have played a significant part in the hunting of its prey, and it was the jaw and neck that were used to snap up, orient, and dispatch small creatures such as lizards. This being said, there is a popular running theory that Coelophysis was actually a pack animal. Due to the discoveries of such huge numbers of individuals preserved in one place, has led to some scientists concluding that these theropods hunted in packs, or at least flocked together for safety and community. This, however, has been disputed too. Amongst the huge communities of Coelophysis to have been preserved alongside each other in these mass graves lie fragments of other animals, such as reptiles and fish. Another way to explain this might be that the dinosaurs had gathered together to drink from a communal water source alongside other animals, or even that they were feeding on an annual spawn or migration of fish, in the same way that modern bears hunt salmon. Therefore, it has been argued that these dinosaurs did not die in one large communal nest or colony, but were instead buried as a result of a natural disaster, perhaps a catastrophic flash flood that swept them all away to be buried under layers of sediment. Some evidence even points to Coelophysis having been cannibalistic, preying on members of its own species. It has been argued that some of the Ghost Ranch specimens in the mass grave show evidence of smaller, juvenile Coelophysis inside the guts of the adults. Robert J. Gay, however, in 2002, studied the fossils once more, only to determine that the remains within these dinosaurs were not Coelophysis in origin, but Hesperosuchus, a type of early crocodile-like reptile that shared the land with these theropods. In 2009, the debate progressed with the discovery of a Coelophysis specimen with regurgitated material gathered around its teeth. These were studied by a separate team, who determined them to be morphologically identical to a young Coelophysis individual. Robert J. Gay was quick to react in the following year, however, with a detailed response. Examining the fossils of young Coelophysis, he discovered that their bones were over 17 times more voluminous than the remains that were thought to have been cannibalized, which would have been even more dense, with flesh and organs attached to the remains. On top of this, there were absolutely no tooth marks present on the bones, and it was even found that the young animal came from earlier rocks than the dinosaur that had supposedly eaten it. Gay's final words on the situation were that the bones were found together due to a coincidental superposition of different-sized individuals. A lot of work has also been done on studying Coelophysis' growth schedule and appearance throughout an individual's life. It was determined in 2009 from studies on the femur bone from a juvenile Coelophysis that the dinosaur grew very quickly before it reached the age of 1. It likely achieved sexual maturity by the age of 2 and reached its full possible length, 3 meters, by the age of 8. On top of this, studies revealed that the dinosaurs would be capable of fending for themselves, that is, seeking food and water, shelter, and avoiding predators as soon as they hatched from their eggs. The mother dinosaur would not be around to fend for them when they emerged from the nest, nor would they catch up with her later in life. These little dinosaurs were on their own. Perhaps like sauropods, they stayed together in small groups for safety in these early months. Each female would lay a clutch of between 24 and 26 eggs, it has been found. So there would have been key opportunities for these dinosaurs to perhaps band together in the early phases of their lives. Strangely enough, there is actually two different forms or morphs of Coelophysis bari, the American species that are known to science. One of them is slightly more robust and bulky than the other, but both retain the slender, agile form identifiable as belonging to Coelophysis. The more slender form is known for its longer skull and neck, shorter arms, and fused sacral bones at the base of the spine. The bulkier form, conversely, possessed a slightly shorter skull and neck, longer arms, and the bones at the base of the spine were not fused. It has been considered that this may have been a form of sexual dimorphism. This is the process where male and female animals evolve different appearances for communication and display purposes. Many species of birds and some mammals are known to be sexually dimorphic. Think of the difference between male and female pheasants, hornbills, birds of paradise, antelopes, gibbons, and even humans. The argument for Coelophysis is that the slender morph represents that of a female dinosaur, and the bulkier morph a male. These differences are common and were present from early stages in the dinosaur's life cycle, even before they reached the age of sexual maturity. Roughly 50% of all known Coelophysis specimens were slender, while 50% were robust, which paleontologists think represents a 50-50 split between males and females of the genus. Some scientists, however, argue that the difference in forms between the two morphs is a result of variations between genetics and individuals. Some Coelophysis individuals are thought to have grown at different rates to others, with some younger individuals measuring almost the size of a fully grown adult. If the dinosaurs were sexually dimorphic, this could mean that color may have also been involved. Perhaps the male was extravagantly colored in display patterns, with the female being a more inconspicuous brown or black coloration. This is speculation, of course, but if the former theory is correct, then based on other examples in the animal kingdom, it is entirely possible. Coelophysis is most closely known from the Chinle Formation, a series of Triassic rocks that span from New Mexico to Arizona. Part of this formation includes Ghost Ranch, where the huge mass grave of Coelophysis fossils was found, and specimens from there are continuously being unearthed by paleontologists to this day. The rocks date from around 212 million years ago to around 201 million years ago, and almost all of these segments are known to contain Coelophysis fossils. At the time the Chinle Formation's animals were alive, New Mexico and Arizona were located very close to the equator, with a climate not too different from the grasslands of modern-day Africa. Monsoons were common seasonally, and it was likely that both dry and wet seasons dominated the lives of the animals that lived there. The overall environment was dominated, like many regions of the Mesozoic, by floodplains, with large river systems cutting through the land and occasional patches of forest and foliage throughout the area. It is thought that when the dry season came around, the lives of the animals of the Chinle Formation became particularly difficult. Food and water would have seasonally been in short supply, and when times were tough, this would have led to aggression and competition between species. Dinosaurs become more common in the rocks of the Chinle Formation if you dig in more recent areas of it. Dinosaurs such as Coelophysis were, in the earlier stages of the formation, some of the only dinosaurs that can be found in these rocks. But there are a few exceptions. Two dinosaurs, Chindosaurus and Daemonosaurus, are known, but in nowhere near the same quantities as Coelophysis. These two dinosaurs are thought to have been theropods, or early ancestors to the sauropods, but with a lack of evidence for them, it is hard to determine exactly where they should be placed in the fossil record. As we mentioned at the start of the video, the Triassic did largely not belong to the dinosaurs, and they only became the dominant life forms on Earth towards the end of the period. Instead, many large reptiles are known to have shared the land with these early theropods, and many are known from the Chinle Formation. Many of these animals were archosaurs, such as Desmatosuchus, a type of Aedosaur. These bulky herbivores were unrelated, but lived similar lifestyles to the large ornithischian dinosaurs of the Jurassic and Cretaceous, such as Stegosaurus and Ankylosaurus. They were armored, with large spines curving back from the shoulders, but were harmless unless disturbed, preferring a diet of water-dwelling plants from the rivers of the region. Alongside this genus lived its relatives, Typothorax and Heliocanthus, but Desmatosuchus is by far the most well-known. Rhynchocephalians such as Whitakersaurus were present here too, a small carnivore whose teeth are known from excellently preserved fossils. Slightly larger was the 1-meter-long Revoltosaurus, a pseudosuchian, which is also thought to have been a plant eater, perhaps even a potential prey item for Coelophysis. One of the most common groups of animals from the Triassic were the Rauisuchians, and they and their relatives are known from these rocks too. Ophidia, Shuvosaurus, Veveron, and their possible relative Coelophysis have been discovered from the rocks in the Chinle Formation. Only a handful of animals here could pose a significant threat to Coelophysis, namely a phytosaur, Machaeroprosopis. Superficially similar in form and size to a large crocodile, this ambush predator would have waited patiently for potential food to come to it, as it laid in wait in the rivers and lakes that broke up the land. If an unwary Coelophysis were to come down for a drink, creatures like this could have easily spelled doom. Another potential predator of Coelophysis is the extremely mysterious Craterochaerodon, known from a series of fragmentary fossil teeth that is so unlike anything else known in the fossil record that scientists are unsure where it should be placed, or what the animal even looked like. The size of the teeth indicate that they came from a large, possibly carnivorous animal that could have potentially interacted with and posed a significant threat to Coelophysis. Amidst the waterways of the Chinle Formation swam a variety of fish and amphibians, which would have fed on a plethora of smaller fish and invertebrates drifting through the waterways. Some of these amphibians, the Metoposaur and Ischisma for example, could easily have been large and powerful enough to ambush an unwary Coelophysis, and was likely a hunter of large fish and reptiles. It was very common and successful across the time periods known to have supported Coelophysis, and the two animals likely saw each other on a frequent basis in life. Smaller was the related Apachesaurus, a crocodile-like amphibian that would have hunted small fish in the rivers of the Chinle Formation. While many of the local fish were small and unobtrusive, some were monsters. Arganodus, for example, is the name given to a giant prehistoric lungfish, over 4 times the length of any of its living relatives. This fish, like its modern-day cousins, would have been perfectly adapted to surviving the droughts of the dry season, burrowing down into the soil when the lakes and rivers dried out. Other small lungfishes occupied these rivers too, many of which would likely have fallen victim to an opportunistic coelophysis on the hunt. As it stands today, Coelophysis has been placed within a clade named after itself, Coelophysoidae, which sits inside the bigger clade Neotheropoda, which in turn sits inside the much larger clade, Theropoda, which contains everything from Coelophysis and Velociraptor to Tyrannosaurus and Giganotosaurus. Coelophysoidae is the only distinct clade within Neotheropoda for the time being, but other famous basal dinosaurs such as Dilophosaurus, Cryolophosaurus, and Sarcosaurus sit just outside the clade known to hold the subject of this video. Within Coelophysoidae, a number of different dinosaur genera are known, all of which are closely related to Coelophysis. Dinosaurs within the clade Coelophysoidae are known on every continent except Oceania and Antarctica, and represent some of the earliest predators the dinosaurs ever saw. In Europe, a variety of small, slender predators related to Coelophysis thrived in the woodlands and floodplains of Germany and the British Isles. Liliensternus is a well-known example, a dinosaur that existed around 210 million years ago. It was patrolling the woods and rivers of Germany at the same time Coelophysis was scouring the water's edge for reptiles and fish in America. But this European hunter was much larger. Measuring over 5 meters in length, this was one of the very first large carnivorous dinosaurs, which would have been capable of hunting larger, more powerful prey than that of Coelophysis. Elsewhere in Wales lived Dracoraptor, which appeared on the scene just as Coelophysis was dying out. Slightly bulkier than its famous American cousin, this dinosaur was discovered in 2014 and is the first known dinosaur to have lived in the Jurassic in Wales. Perhaps the second most famous member of the clade can be found back in Germany though, in the form of Procompsognathus. This was a tiny, lightly built gracile carnivore that would have hunted small reptiles and early relatives of the mammals across the forest floor. The Americas are known to have played host to a number of coelophysoid dinosaurs outside of the clade's namesake. South America is known to have been home to both Powell-Venador and Luciano-Venador in the late Triassic, 2 small predators that are known from fossil deposits in Argentina. North America is known for Stegosaurus, a 1-meter-long cousin of Coelophysis from the Tsegi Canyon in Arizona, as well as Lepidus, a theropod that predated even Coelophysis from Texas, and Camptosaurus, a small carnivore from the Blue Water Creek Formation of Arizona. Scattered remains from Africa and Asia have respectively introduced paleontologists to Megapnosaurus, another dinosaur that has been discovered in a large communal gravesite, and Pangoraptor from the early Jurassic of China. Today, Coelophysis is often added into dinosaur books, television shows, and literature to demonstrate the fact that dinosaurs were poised and ready for evolutionary action from the Triassic. As much as this is true, such books often fail to mention that dinosaurs were not the dominant reptile group on Earth at this time. Coelophysis is one of a few dinosaurs, however, that is awarded with a reconstruction in these books, and as a result, many people familiar with dinosaurs can picture a slender, agile theropod upon hearing its name. The dinosaur was also given a starring spot in the BBC's 1999 documentary series Walking with Dinosaurs, perhaps the most influential piece of paleomedia ever created. The dinosaurs starred alongside animals such as Postosuchus, Placerius, Plateosaurus, Patinosaurus, and Cinegnathus in the series' first episode, New Blood, focusing entirely on animals from the Triassic. Possible cannibalistic behaviors and pack hunting strategies were demonstrated in the series, and the dinosaurs were shown both with models and CGI, which to this day still look convincing. Displaying these dinosaurs as brightly colored, with streaks of red, green, and yellow making up their markings, was also one of the first examples of dinosaurs displayed to the public more speculatively, similar to modern-day reptiles and birds, rather than dull-colored beasts. An excellent piece of dinosaur trivia is that Coelophysis is actually one of the dinosaurs, alongside the Cretaceous hadrosaur Maiasaura, whose remains have been sent into space. A skull from the Carnegie Museum of Natural History was on board the Space Shuttle Endeavour mission on the 22nd of January 1998, 1 year before the species would make its famous debut on Walking with Dinosaurs. Before it was brought safely back down to Earth, astronauts on board the shuttle took the specimen on board the space station Mir 2. Today, Coelophysis is the official state fossil of New Mexico and has been awarded a proud place as the official logo of the New Mexico Museum of Natural History. Most recently, the dinosaur has been featured in the sci-fi zoo-building game Prehistoric Kingdom, where players can create lifelike exhibits for this dinosaur. Coelophysis is a rare example of a dinosaur from the Triassic winning a place in the hearts of dinosaur fans and the general public everywhere. A far cry from the giants of the Jurassic or the iconic species of the Cretaceous, this little theropod represents the humble beginnings of the dinosaurs, not as terrible lizards, but as common hunters of small reptiles that were by no means the top of the food chain. As our understanding of this dinosaur grows, the more acknowledgement and respect it seems to get from both scientists and the public alike.